And we're back on the SportsMax Zone, ready for our Copa America segment. Brazil have again underlined their status as favourites for the Copa America with another win in South American World Cup qualifying action. The final set of World Cup qualifiers ahead of the June 13 to July 10 Copa America were played on Tuesday, with Brazil easing by Paraguay 2-0. Peru were the only other winners on the day, edging Ecuador 2-1. The other three matches ended in draws. So after 6 rounds, Brazil are flawless, topping the table with maximum 18 points. Argentina are 6 points back in second on 12, ahead of Ecuador in third on 9. Uruguay occupy the fourth automatic World Cup spot ahead of Colombia on goal difference. Despite last night's win, Peru are bottom of the standings on 4 points. We are joined by our South American football correspondent, Juan Arango. Juan, what did these latest qualifiers tell you about the teams ahead of the Copa America?
Well, first of all, it says that, hey, Brazil's the creme de la creme of South American football, which is something that no one really was going to be surprised about, a team that hasn't lost a World Cup qualifying match in nearly 5 years. So it shows where they are in terms of that. But also, the biggest surprise is seeing Bolivia for the first time in 36 years going unbeaten in 2 consecutive matches. So that, again, tells you how tight everything is in terms of second all the way down to 10th place, where one significant run could put a team back in World Cup qualifying places. Just ask Colombia what happened as they were able to get 4 out of 6 in the last 2 rounds. So again, you start seeing how tight it is. It is in part because of how much parity there is in South American football. That can also be attributed to also the low level of play in some aspects.
Definitely, and as you speak about Colombia, of course, they drew with Argentina. So is it that Argentina will be a threat in this Copa America?
That's a big question mark, because if you looked at the first 45 minutes, you think that they were candidates to even win the World Cup. I know I'm exaggerating a bit when I'm saying that, but they looked very fluid. They looked very good. Some were even saying that that was one of the best first halves that they had in the past year and a half. But the second half rolls around and you see a Colombia that was a bit more rejuvenated with the entrance of Luis Muriel and a couple other substitutions that were made by Ronaldo Rueda. Argentina ends up falling off their pace, and then Colombia ends up equalizing there towards the end of the match, which was a huge morale booster for the Colombian national team, being able to get that point that at one point seemed very unlikely.
Definitely. Well, as we continue to build up to the tournament, today we focus on 2 of the perennial challengers, Uruguay and Chile. Let's get their stories.
Uruguay won the first Copa America in 1916 and holds the honor of being the winningest team in tournament history with 15 titles. Their most recent victory was in 2011 when 2 goals from Diego Forlan and 1 from Luis Suarez gave them a 3-0 win over Paraguay in the final. In the 2019 edition, Uruguay were knocked out by Peru at the quarterfinal stage. This year, Uruguay are drawn in Group A with Bolivia, Argentina, Chile and Paraguay. Seemingly at the tail end of a golden generation, Uruguay's success at international level in the past decade has been overseen by long-serving coach Oscar Tabarez. The contract for the 74-year-old expires in 2022, and this could well be the last Copa America for El Maestro. The bedrocks of the team, Diego Godin, Edison Cavani and Luis Suarez, are all over the age of 34, and this appears to be the last dance for them as well. The experience running throughout the squad is undisputed. Captain Godin is Uruguay's most capped player with 139 appearances. Cavani and Suarez are not far behind in 3rd and 4th respectively on that list. Cavani, who was a free agent at the start of last season, surprised most by having a more than productive campaign for Manchester United, scoring 17 goals in all competitions. And even at age 34, Luis Suarez is still one of the world's best strikers. He proved his doubters wrong by leading Atletico Madrid to the La Liga title, where his 21 goals were good enough for 4th in the Golden Boot race. Some may say Uruguay have an old, stale squad, but given the experience and quality of their most influential players, only a fool would write them off. Uruguay open against Argentina on June 18. It may be the final ride for the heroes of another golden generation. The legendary players that helped Chile to their first Copa titles in the nation's history are inevitably coming to the end of a cycle. The back-to-back titles in 2015 and 2016 were secured with penalty shootout wins over Lionel Messi's Argentina in the finals. In the 2019 tournament, the Chileans were knocked out by Peru, losing 3-0 in the semi-finals. They ended up fourth after losing 2-1 to Argentina in the third-place playoff. The likes of Alexis Sanchez, Arturo Vidal, Claudio Bravo and Gary Medel will again need to be at their best if Chile is to again conquer their continental rivals. Coach Martin Lasarte knows that while his squad perhaps lacks the energy that a youthful nucleus would provide, he can rely on a core of experienced street fighters, veterans who know how to win the tournament. Lasarte must look to keep his key men as fresh as possible for a deep run in the tournament. Unlike in the championship years in 2015 and 2016, Sanchez and Vidal aren't the main men at their clubs these days, but both are coming off a high given the roles they played in helping Inter Milan win their first Serie A title in 10 years. Both men are warriors and are determined to bring glory to themselves and their team this summer. Truthfully, Chilean fans are more circumspect in their expectations than, say, 5 years ago, but they would still expect this team to make a strong run in the tournament. Chile will open against Argentina on June 13.
One, before Lance and George join the conversation, are Uruguay and Chile genuine Copa contenders?
Contenders they will tend to be or lean to be, because in a one-off situation, they can always be able to defensively make themselves strong. They're a team that has the players, have the capabilities to be able to score at least one and defend very well. We've seen it in World Cup qualifying play. Now, the one that I do have some reservations about is on the attack, both for Chile and for Uruguay. Uruguay in World Cup qualifying play, I think it's something over 250 minutes without scoring a goal. They, again, did not score in the draw against Venezuela. Chile has had some problems as far as being able to score as well. We saw it yesterday as trying to get that final touch in a 1-1 draw against Bolivia at home. That ends up really generating a lot of problems, so much so that there's a lot of talk of maybe starting to see the possibility of Ben Brereton, the man that's playing over at Blackburn Rovers, getting a shot maybe sometime during World Cup qualifying play when September rolls around, or if the situation does not get any better, it might end up being during Copa America.
Definitely. Lance, what's your take on, of course, Chile?
Well, you know, Chile has been good for the past decade, but when I look at their current roster, I'm seeing players who probably are a little bit past their best. So I don't have a lot of faith in their, prospects for this. Uruguay have a pretty solid setup. I think they've only won 2 of their 6 World Cup qualifiers so far, so that's an indication of what their form is. But they've only lost 2, I think. So they've won 2, drawn 2, and lost 2. So Uruguay, not a bad setup, but I would be surprised if Chile goes deep into this tournament.
George?
You know, I've always loved Chilean football and the Chilean stars. One of the things I noted from in the early 90s coming forward, Chile never had more than 2 outstanding players at a time. And there was a long time when their 2 outstanding players were 2 attackers, Marcelo Salas and, of course, Ivan Bam Bam Zamorano, the ex-Inter Milan striker. And then you had a mothballing of talent in the Chilean ranks. You had Sanchez, of course, you had Vidal, you had one of my favorite Chilean players, Mati Fernandez, I think was grossly underrated. The otherworldly Jorge Valdivia, Edu Vargas, and of course Bravo in goal, Bocijo, and Gary Medel, who has emerged. And that group, that bigger group, so where they relied on 2 stars before, this is now a team with 8 or 9 genuine top quality international players. That's a strength which they took into Copa Centenario, which they won that Copa, then they defended the title. All of those men I spoke of are either, well, most of them are still here. A couple of them are out. Valdivia is out, knee trouble and other injuries are undermining his longevity in football. But the rest of them are now old, long in the tooth, are past their best. And that's what Chile has to rely on now. There's not a new wave of talent coming through to make those veterans sweat over their places and so put in better performances. They know they'll get picked once they're fit. There's not this competitiveness within the squad, and the old guys just don't have the energy. The wheels aren't there. I just wanted to go back, Juan, to I was saying this to Lance off camera. The Chile team that won the Copa Centenario played some of the best football I've seen in the Copa America in a long time. They were magical. That team doesn't exist anymore, and I fear they'll fall severely short of target this competition.
And that was 6 years ago, George, which is the point you're making, and it's pretty much the same roster.
Yep.
Right.
And to add to that, if you look at the roster, if you take a quick glance at it, you're not sure if you're watching or you're looking at the 2015 roster or the 2021 roster. And I wholeheartedly agree with George. And that's been part of the problem with Chilean football the past few years. You have very few players coming down the pipeline in terms of development. And that's been a big problem, not just at the national team level, but also at the club level in their lack of success in terms of Copa Libertadores, in terms of Copa Sudamericana, as only one team, and that's Universidad Católica, just this year has been able to advance out of the group stage. So again, you start looking at the parallels and the type of players that are being developed and the type of players that are being exported to other countries, especially into Europe. You don't see that right now. I mean, you only actually see a couple of players like Ben Brereton, again, I have to mention him, who, because his mother happened to be Chilean, okay, fine. We start seeing a lot of that type of scouting being done in South America now. But again, a team that's long in the tooth, a team that missed Arturo Vidal, who at 33, almost 34 years of age, still runs like he has 3 lungs, but you can't depend on him.
Right.
Charlie Sarangis, who's had a lot of problems too in terms of injuries, he too is gone. And also Marcelo Diaz, who very few also mentioned in the midfield, he's also gone as far as the Chilean national team is concerned.
But just last point before we move, Moran, I know we're short in time, but that outstanding Chile generation that crowned their promise with that Copa Centenario win and the successful defense of Copa, we saw that youth team coming. For those who pay attention to youth tournaments, under 17, under 20, we saw those players together. We said, oh, if this crop can stay together, they'll do great things for Chile. I haven't seen an outstanding Chilean youth football team in quite a while, Juan, I must confess.
2007.
Well, there you go. That was 14 years ago. And that's the point. That's the point.
Exactly. And that's the problem. And it's well documented. It's not, I mean, we're not saying anything that's revolutionary or just mind-blowing here. It's the absolute truth, which is not just a problem for Chile. It's a problem with a lot of national teams in South America in terms of their development. We can talk hours about that.
Right.
But again, that is the biggest problem.
Definitely one, which is why we will be keeping in conversation with you as we build up towards the Copa America. Thank you so much for your expertise today, and we'll connect again. Of course,
as always.
You're welcome. Of course, viewers, the Copa America tournament will be live on SportsMax. You don't need to miss a minute of the action.